Okay, we're getting started here. Thank you for joining us. This is the Deschutes County Board of Commissioners meeting, 1 p.m. Monday, December 1st. And first item is citizen input. So there's a couple of requests online, it looks like already, but Roger Sabadini also is in the room. This will be 3 minutes. Brenda will have a little notification after 3 minutes.
Thank you, Commissioner DeBonne and Commissioner Chang and Adair for allowing me to speak. I would like to speak in opposition to the mapping idea, and I believe it is undemocratic and it is highly partisan. And the reason why I believe that, because in 2022, we all voted, that our citizens of this county voted, and I worked hard personally to make sure that the county commission was nonpartisan, not partisan, to move it away from being partisan. And I think this map demonstrates quite the opposite to what the intention of the voters was in 2022. That is, make county commissioner positions nonpartisan. And I would note, and I was disturbed to learn that it was that the advisory board that you assembled only voted in favor of the current map by a margin of 1. And it is the expectation that today the map might be approved by a very narrow margin of 1. So that's not a consensus. And the reason why I believe the county commission should be nonpartisan and should be county-wide is because county issues are not defined by specific geographical areas, like wildfires, for example. The wildfires endanger all of us, whether or not whatever segment of the county we live in. We suffer the risk to our homes and our farms and our businesses. All of us suffer. And air pollution is something that's not governed by geographical area. It's wildfire smoke spreads everywhere. Similarly, health and safety issues are not specifically governed by certain areas. They're countywide. We're all concerned. Homelessness. To your credit, you guys deal with the homelessness issue. It's a countywide issue. It's not just in Bend. It's not just Redmond. It's not just in La Pine. It's countywide. And even commercial development is an issue that concerns all of us around the county. Water resources, land use, and so on, road development, and so on. So, in conclusion, you probably know my name is Sabadini. You probably know my daughter Amy Sabadini has offered herself up as a candidate for position number 3, Patty Adair's seat. You know, she wants to represent all citizens of all constituents of this county, not just people in Bend, not just people in Redmond, all citizens. And she's committed to do that. And it would be a shame if her tenure as a commissioner in this illustrious board would be restricted to just some narrow specific area. So thank you very much for your kind attention, and thank you all for your service. I know it's a you know that you say that almost euphemistically, but it's really true. You serve our county, and thank you for that service.
Thank you so much. So that's it for requests that are in the room for citizen input. Online, we have a couple raised hand feature. Emily.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you for joining us.
Hi, my name is Emily Brown and I'm a resident of Bend. I spoke with you guys last month about the map districting, and at that time, Commissioner DeBonne, you told me that you feel that everything is democratic because this is going to the ballot. And Commissioner Adair, you told me you think this is a non-issue because of your experience in Los Angeles. However, the process to get the map, I do not feel has been democratic. The committee couldn't reach a majority consensus consistently, and the last meeting was canceled despite opposition within the committee. My question to you is this: since there is considerable pushback to the process thus far, and there was no significant majority consensus on the MAP committee, and it has been pointed out by both government and legal professionals that you are opening up the county to costly and time-consuming litigation, why do you insist on pushing this through?
There may not be a response from us at this time. This is citizen input. Thank you so much for joining us. Are you completed?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. So yeah, next is Becky Hickman.
Okay, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, thank you. Talking about the Deschutes County District voting map, I have some concerns. I think it narrows the vote for a commissioner per voter residence in geographical locations, diminishes it from choice countywide. The commissioners are tasked with representing all county residents, not just ones in their district. To manipulate an electoral constituency's boundaries, whether by geography or limiting voter choice, is synonymous with gerrymandering. I recommend that each candidate is considered countywide, meaning that all county voters get to vote for the candidates for each district. This will ensure that a commission will come from each district and that candidates will represent the whole county. I believe in the old adage, measure twice, cut once. This raises the question, is the division of the county into districts with narrowing voters, citizens regarding all county commissioners on the ballot really a form of division by design? We must ask ourselves, why are we dividing up the county and narrowing voter opportunity? Have we asked, how do these actions promote democracy and ensure voter choice? A main guiding principle in this process should be, will these actions improve voter choice and therefore improve citizen representation? Questions I have are, 1, how do these actions provide quality county representation and promote democracy? 2, shouldn't all county voters be able to vote for any or all candidates on the ballot, not just the ones in their district? Do not all county commissioners represent the whole county, not just their district? 3, as quoted from the source, most will want to see 5 commissioners as one body, ideally advocating for the good of the entire county. Do we really need to divide up the county and the vote? Once again, is this division by design? Last question. I believe we should take more time to assess the situation. Can we not take the time to measure twice and cut once? Let's look at other areas that may have already implemented a system of districts in a county and review their process. For example, Missoula, Montana. Do we need to reinvent the wheel? Are we sowing seeds of division or sowing seeds of hope? Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Mary Bitterbush.
And Mary, thank you for joining us.
Okay, yes, hi, Mary Fleischman. There's so much wrong with this potential ballot measure. I've already sent you my opinion numerous times, but again, want you to know I'm opposed to this whole process. When the public voted to add 2 additional commissioners, they did not ask for districts. We want candidates looking out for the entire county. An advisory committee was put together and there was not a unanimous consensus on the districting map. Under this plan as a voter, if there's not a viable candidate in my district to vote for, I have no voice or a vote. The other elephant in the room is the additional costs that districts will have to us taxpayers. Will there be different ballots that have to be printed? Will there be more drop size for each district? How much more is it going to cost for more tracking and separation of counts? And what about the increase in campaign expenses? None of this has even been brought into account. So the whole process has been rushed and it's going to be costly when and if it's shut down by voters who are very unhappy with this process. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. Is there anyone else with the raised hand feature on Zoom that would like to speak? And seeing none, I've already called for in the room. At this time, moving to commissioner announcements. We've added this to our agenda just to get those things out there that we may want to share. Okay. Okay, so then at this time, item number 1, consideration of termination of solid waste franchises for the collection of solid waste in the unincorporated areas of Deschutes County. So this is follow up to our meeting we had about 6 weeks ago or whatever it was.
Yeah, good afternoon, commissioners. Thanks for your attention to this. So yes, this is a follow-up to the work session that we had in October. And what's before you today is discussion and consideration of the termination of the franchise collection, solid waste franchises for collection. And this is something that the department has been working with administration and legal over the course of really the last 2.5 years to see if we could move into a new franchise arrangement to basically modernize the system that has been in place since 1972. So the franchises were granted back at that time. They were for a long time held by 4 local service providers. Since 2007, they've been migrated through purchase to larger national organizations that are now currently providing the service, not only here for the unincorporated part of the county, but also within this, the incorporated cities as well. So there are a few key elements that we have been trying to address. One is around performance standards, making sure that when these franchises were originally granted, it was for solid waste collection here in the county with about 30,000 residents. Now we have solid waste collections, we have recycling collections, organics collections in various parts of the county, serving over about 215,000 people here. So we really want to make sure that the services that we're providing are up to the standards and expectations that the residents have for these services. Many people have moved into the area and have experienced other services in other areas. So we have growing expectations of what the service should be provided. We also are trying to address facility designation, making sure that as the county is looking to make significant investments in disposal, as you all are aware, the new landfill that we're looking to put in place, we're looking to also potentially develop new processing facilities for the diverting of materials to meet our county solid waste management plan goals for diversion. We want to make sure that all the materials here in the county that we are looking to dispose of or recover are moving through those facilities that we're looking to invest in and design and put in place. The potential investment that the county is looking at here in and around Bend is in the neighborhood of up to $125 million with new landfill, new diversion processing facilities, new transfer stations. We only control the waste of what is in the unincorporated part of the county. The cities also have franchise agreements. They have the right to designate where they want those materials that are collected under their franchise agreements to go to. We've been working with the cities to identify new franchise agreements that the county would help them administer. They would still set rates, but the county would be involved in the day-to-day administration of those franchise agreements. They currently don't have the staff or the expertise to do that and are looking for the county to take on that level of responsibility. What they are willing to do is then under intergovernmental agreements, then work with the county to make sure that the flow of waste and recyclables and compostable materials coming out of their jurisdictions would be coming to our facilities. The haulers can't designate that themselves. It actually has to be done by the jurisdiction under their franchise agreements or by their designation of authority to the county. So that's something that we're also working on to get into the agreements. We also want financial transparency and reporting so that under our rate setting that the residents and the decision makers have good, clear information that we're able to make decisions based on. And also finally, that we are able to meet all of the various requirements and regulations as stipulated by the Department of Environmental Quality. And those are the Opportunity to Recycle Act, now the Recycling Modernization Act. And in time, we expect that there will be more. So what we're looking at with the notice of termination, that would then put in place a 6-year wind down. That isn't an immediate termination of these agreements. These are what are called evergreen contracts or rolling agreements that go every year. They renew for another year. They're basically a continuous 7-year horizon. With termination, they would still have 6 years left on the current agreements. During that time, what we'd be looking at doing is, and particularly during the first 3 years, is taking a look at what would an ideal franchise agreement and franchise arrangement look like. What are the agreements that we can get in place with the cities? What is that franchise agreement that they would want to have that is the same template as the county? That's what we'd be working on. And then we could either negotiate with our current service providers as to whether that is an agreement, or negotiate with them some other terms and aspects that would be suitable for all parties, and we could enter into agreement with them. If we weren't able to, we could then potentially put this out to RFP and put it out to a broader group of potential service providers. There are several folks who are providing services in the Pacific Northwest as well as around the country who we believe would be interested in potentially providing services here. I will say the current service providers who are currently located here are at a distinct advantage. If we were to put it out to RFP, they have the entire infrastructure, including carts and equipment, already in place. So from a financial perspective, I would say they're pretty well suited. But what this would do is it would put the county, and if the city of Redmond has already provided termination of notice for their agreement, the city of Bend would consider this as well. It would put us, all the jurisdictions, in a very good position to be able to have what we think would be fruitful discussions with our service providers, where we haven't gotten to that place with all of them. So with that, I'll open it up to questions and comments.
Great. So this is for follow-up for the Board of Commissioners to make these choices and decisions. It's kind of a moment to make that decision for this next year for the 7-year rolling contract. I've come to the conclusion that I do want to see everybody working together, refer to the cities. The current franchise operators are wonderful partners in the community doing a great service here, but in support of that future solid waste system investment, I'd like to take the reins and really make sure that we're doing what we need to do in the big picture. Sharing with my fellow commissioners about where I'm at.
So you're supporting the moving forward with the determination so that we can work on new franchise agreements. That's where I'm at as well. I mean, our job here is to govern solid waste management. We have solid waste operations, but the entire solid waste system, our job is governance, and we need to be able to ensure good performance, move forward with investments in landfills and construction and demolition, reprocessing centers and expanding compost operations with the knowledge that the flow of material through our region is going to go to those places. We owe it to the customers and ratepayers to have adequate financial transparency and reporting so that we can ensure them that they are paying fair rates. So for a variety of reasons, I see these modern franchise agreements as a real opportunity for us to do good or do well by our constituents. Some people are framing this as a punitive measure. Like I don't see it at all that way. We have solid waste collectors who are doing a good job or are recovering from a period of lapse of good service and moving forward. This is just our opportunity to make sure that we are doing right by our constituents, the customers of these two solid waste collectors.
Okay, here I am, the person that goes to the transfer station, probably more than a lot of other people in the room. I've actually had amazing experiences there, and I want to thank Erwin for sending a letter in this morning representing Cascade. I feel really badly that we have a company in our county that's actually providing excellent service to our county. I was at his office. There were 8 people actually there answering customer calls, customer service, actually people hiring in Bend. I feel like their service is quick. They can rally. We were talking about just like plastic on dry cleaning. I've always opted out of that, and it's like, why don't more people do that? But they had to pick up a couple items from Bend City one day, more recycling things, and they immediately implemented it. They do a great job. Now, the other party in the county clearly has had major issues, and I feel like we're punishing Cascade. According to Erwin's letter, this is what I feel that it would be lovely if we could address this before we go ahead. And then he said, the proposed draft contract includes punitive liquid damages without broad discretion given to the county, And I feel that's really bad. I know, Tim, yourself, you had to drive out and help people a year or two ago. People, I'm in Redmond, I'm hearing the horror stories of what the other firm is doing. But I am not hearing the horror stories of Cascade. And so I feel like, when you have somebody that does a great job, it should be complimented and recognized and maybe worked with a little bit more. So that's my situation as far as this contract that we're going to modernize. So many times modernize means exactly the opposite of. I don't know, did you read the letter that came in?
Yes, I did.
Oh, good, I'm glad you read it.
I mean, on the liquidated damages topic, I just want to make sure everyone understands that the county having the authority to enforce performance, by imposing liquidated damages, should only be a concern to solid waste collection entities who don't intend to provide good service. I mean, if you're providing good service, then you don't have to worry about liquidated damages. And, if that is a particular concern of Cascade Disposal, then, I would just say, based on the amount of complaints that we get, I don't think you need to really worry about it. So it's an enforcement mechanism, but if you're not worried about providing good service, then it's not an enforcement mechanism that you need to be concerned about. I do want to say that Cascade Disposal provides good service. I'm a customer. I have no concerns about the service I've gotten over the many years that I've lived in this community.
How many years has it been?
21.
Okay, so they've been you've been their customer for 21 years and they've actually been excellent then. You're not one of those people that call up when they're 5 minutes late on Wednesday,
The
like
places,
they say.
the different neighborhoods I've lived in, I'm actually not 100% sure that I've been in Cascade Disposal the whole time. The other thing I want to say though is that the Cascade Disposal of today is not the same Cascade Disposal of past years that I've lived here. This is now a subsidiary of a national, a very large national corporation, Waste Connections. And that is another reason why I support this idea of a modern franchise agreement, because when you're playing with local players, you have all good relationships and good community relationships, it's one thing. When you're playing with an entity whose ultimate decision makers are far, far away from our community, it is helpful to have legal protections for our constituents, the customers who will be working with both of these solid waste franchises.
Well, one national firm has one role model, but the other one has something that they believe in being local. And I heard Cascade Disposal's name at the Deschutes County Fair this last year repeatedly went buying, FFA and 4-H kids auction items. I don't believe I heard the other person. It's, it starts at the top and, I know Erwin is going to be here forever, but he's definitely been an incredible, wonderful community participant that has always served every resident on their, on their customer list.
Solid waste haulers are a different animal than various manufacturers or tech companies in our community, but we have seen a whole lot of local businesses provide a good product or a good service, have great success in business, be bought out by a national corporation, and then have dramatic changes imposed upon them. Any sector you could probably look at, tech companies, outdoor gear manufacturers, beer manufacturers. So being owned by a national entity makes your decision space different. And I think that this modern franchise agreement is a good safeguard for our community against things that might happen in places far away that we have no control.
So as I say, I'm supporting this for the effort of the coordination of the franchise agreements with the cities in the big investment of our solid waste system. I would like to acknowledge, our 50+ year history in this. There's no doubt that the great partnerships and the evolution of the system over the years it provides a basic foundational service. As I say, service customer in Southern Deschutes County, never had a complaint, always made relationship with the haulers, wave at them when they drive by on Thursday morning if I'm in that area. So very positive relationship. So this is just that next step in the relationship in Deschutes County. And I'm just explaining that. I'm supporting it because of that huge investment. Let's all get on the same page and make sure it's not risky for either party. So yeah, and as I say, you're calling out one hauler and kind of getting the short end of this, but it is a system. It's a big full size system. So as I say, I've got relationships with a lot of folks in this room because of that. So it's not punitive. Is there a motion?
I move to, should this motion be done in two parts or?
Two separate parts.
Okay. I move to authorize the Solid Waste Department Director to issue a notice of termination to all solid waste collection franchise holders operating under existing board orders in the unincorporated areas of Deschutes County, initiating the 6-year wind down provided for under the current evergreen structure.
I'll second it. Any other discussion? Seeing that, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Adair,
No,
and Chair votes yes. And there's a second motion to get us moving forward.
You can oppose the first message motion and still support the second one.
do you think I could figure that out?
This is a moment, I know. This is
Offering it,
Yeah.
offering it
thank
to you if you'd like to make the
Oh,
motion.
yes.
No, I'm not making the motion. I might vote for, but I definitely am not making a motion. You know, I really think in today's world to find a company that does as good a work as they do, it's really unfortunate.
I move to authorize the solid waste department director to lead a coordinated countywide process aligned with the cities of Bend, Redmond, Sisters, and Lapine to design and competitively procure a contemporary franchise framework via a request for proposals with agreements targeted for a defined 10 to 15-year term.
I'll second it.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so for discussion, this kind of opens up that book. Let's go. Let's try to do something big here, with our current franchise operators. Please come to the table. Let's be partners, talk about what we can do here. And it's to say that, as the director said, being partners currently is a big step ahead from anybody else.
This is an opportunity for us to design a system that works for everybody, and particularly that keeps us in alignment with our major cities.
Well, let's hope we go higher and not go lower, because definitely there's one down here and there's one up here. So I would say everyone needs to go up. Yeah, the issues that people have been dealing with in part of our county have been quite incredulous. So anyway, let's go higher.
Okay, Colin for the vote, Commissioner Chang,
Yes.
Commissioner Adair,
Yes.
and Chair will vote yes. There we go. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
As I say, thanks for your partnership, and as I say, the people doing the job every day, I really appreciate what goes on out there.
Thank you.
Item number 2, presentation. So this is our partner ODOT for Baker Road Interchange Area Management Plan. Okay, switching gears now. I think the solid waste trucks use these same interchanges, don't they?
Good afternoon, Commissioners. For the record, Tarek Rawlings, Senior Transportation Planner with the Community Development Department and the Road Department. And I think we might have Kayla, or she's online right now, perfect. But today, just as was briefly alluded to, we have a presentation that'll be an overview of ODOT's US 97 Baker Road Interchange Area Management Plan, or the IAMP. This is a culmination of a multi-year process. This follows the October 9th Planning Commission update of the similar, just kind of informational update on the final design of the IAMP itself. We have some time at the end for other updates and questions, discussion, however we'd like to proceed, but we have representatives from ODOT today, as well as their consultant from DKS, Kayla, on the screen today. And I will be available if there's any other questions, but mostly ODOT's here for the presentation.
So introductions, please.
I'll go first. Good afternoon, everyone. Ken Schunkweiler, work in ODOT planning.
Thank you. Ken or Kent?
Ken, K.
Good afternoon, Commission and staff. I'm Don Morehouse. Met all of you before previous work, but yeah, been overseeing the Baker Road Interchange Area Management Plan over about 5 years roughly. So yeah, I've got Kayla from DKS here that's going to walk us through a brief presentation on where we've gotten over those years with the plan, and a preferred alternative. So, yeah, and then we'll open up to any questions.
Great.
Yeah.
Good morning, Commissioners, County staff. I'm Jim Schultes. I'm the Operations and Maintenance District Manager for Central Oregon, for Oregon Department of Transportation.
Thank you very much. So a couple slides, and then, yeah, thank you, Kayla, for joining us.
Yes, thank you, Commissioners, for having me today. I'm Kayla Fluskus Lane. I'm a transportation engineer with GKS Associates and was involved, helped to lead this US 97 Baker Road Interchange Area Management Plan. So I've got about 20 slides or so to go through with you all today. The intent of this is really an informational meeting to give you an understanding of what is in the final plan that the Oregon Transportation Commission will be adopting. We've been working on this, like Don mentioned, for several years, and so components of this plan are actually already adopted in the Deschutes County TSP. So this is just giving you maybe a more complete understanding of what was included in that TSP adoption. I'm going to go through things fairly quickly here, so feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions or if I'm going too fast through some of this content. So the purpose of an interchange area management plan, or an IAMP, is to establish an agreement with local governments about transportation solutions or land use and policy actions needed in an interchange area and how to implement them to protect the function of an interchange and the significant investments in infrastructure that come along with that. The US 97 Baker Road IAMP was a recommended action from the US 97 Bend to Lava Butte Refinement Plan and the US 97 Bend Parkway Plan. So we were building upon a lot of past planning work. And this image on the right-hand side of the screen that you see here is that US 97 Baker Road interchange, which is on the southernmost end of Bend within Deschutes County, if you're not already familiar. The US 97 Baker Road interchange was constructed about 30 years ago and was designed to serve the sparsely developed rural lands in the area and to accommodate truck movements between US 97 and US 20. Today, however, increasing urban growth has resulted in congestion and safety issues at this interchange, and this is expected to worsen with anticipated housing and employment growth in South Bend. So that was really the driver for this project. The purpose of this IAMP is to ensure the safe and efficient operation of the interchange area for all modes of travel through the 20-year planning horizon, and to identify transportation improvements, management strategies, and again, land use policy actions needed to support planned development in the area. So like Don mentioned, we've been working on this project for a while. The majority of the work was in 2020 and 2022, as well as 23 and 24. During that time, we went through several major milestones in this planning process that you might typically expect. So defining kind of what the project is, some of the background, setting goals and objectives, evaluating those baseline conditions, and then developing and evaluating transportation alternatives to ultimately select that preferred alternative. Something that's maybe a bit unique to IAMPs is that they also include an access management plan and some implementing actions that go along with that. So I'll describe that in a few slides here. And then finally, that this is all coalesced into that IAMP report. During the time of this project, we held 2 online open houses, and we had several meetings with our technical advisory committee and our community advisory committee. And ultimately 3 meetings with the Bend MPO Policy Board. And so digging into that a little bit, the decision-making structure for this process, the Bend MPO Policy Board was our project steering committee, and then those technical and community advisory committees helped serve in an advisory role and make recommendations to the MPO Policy Board. You'll notice there's a long list of different organizations, groups that were involved in this, including, of course, Deschutes County. So like I mentioned, we held 2 online open houses to discuss kind of existing needs and then to walk through alternatives to help us work towards what that preferred alternative for this interchange area would be. And then ODOT also hosted a project website throughout the course of the project. The interchange area management plan itself is divided into 6 different chapters. Today, I'm going to focus more on chapters 4, 5, and 6, so kind of what the recommendations or the outcome of the IAMP include. But we also talk about the project process, existing and future needs in this report. So diving into kind of what the recommended improvements are. I'm going to show two different alternatives on the screen and move through them pretty quickly because several components of each of them made it into that final preferred alternative. But I think it's helpful to understand the background of where what alternatives we had looked at that led to this preferred. So two of the alternatives that we looked at that started rising to the top of our evaluation of the outreach and engagement comments that we were receiving. The first was alternative 1, enhancing existing ramp terminals. So in this aerial image, you'll see on the west side, we have realigned that US 97 off ramp and the local Baker Court into a single intersection with a signal. And then on the opposite side of the interchange on that east end, we're showing a roundabout. And so really it's keeping the interchange ramp terminals roughly where they are today, but just enhancing the intersections there to better improve conditions. This was the lowest cost option. It helped eliminate some of the conflicts between the offset ramp terminal at the southbound there with Baker Court, and then also included lengthening that southbound off ramp to give more
Kayla,
time
can you
for
give us
people
the
to
cost on
decelerate.
it? It's Commissioner Adair. Can you give us the cost?
I don't think I have a cost on this option, but I do have the costs for the preferred, which contain components of this. So you'll see a cost number here in a second, and
Okay.
I can potentially go through the report fast enough to find you a cost for this option as well, if that's helpful.
No, that's okay. Just wondered.
So this was alternative 1. The next alternative that was also very popular was alternative 3. And so this one involved moving the southbound on and off ramps over to the east side of the interchange, further separating from turning movements here at Baker Court. This obviously would be a fairly high cost option to move both of those ramps, have them fly over US 97. But it had some benefits of kind of consolidating those movements at a single roundabout. So with these two alternatives being the most popular alternatives, what we were hearing from our committees was really that alternative 3 was pretty widely supported. Folks liked moving it away. I didn't mention we've got a railroad line here. Folks liked moving the interchange further away from that railroad crossing, some of the safety benefits that would come from that, and the capacity benefits that would come from that. But understood, recognized that that was going to be more costly to construct, and also more challenging to phase that improvement. And there was definitely a desire to get improvements out here sooner. And so ultimately alternative 1 was selected as this preferred alternative. It did a better job than the other alternative that we analyzed at resolving some of those turning movement conflicts, and reduced those turning movement conflicts with people walking and biking. But we left it open in this plan for alternative 3 to be considered in the future if additional funding were to be obtained, for example.
Can I ask about, so both of these concepts have a roundabout on the east side. The roundabout in alternative 3 is probably bigger in some way, like a double, something like that. Just thinking about if implementing alternative 3 later, is a lot of the sunk cost of alternative 1 still useful in alternative 3? So like is alternative 3 essentially, could it be viewed as building upon alternative 1? Or if you do alternative 1, have you sunk a bunch of cost into pieces that then you need to tear down or not use anymore under alternative 3? Or just how do the two work together?
Yeah, it depends on what you would phase or build first with alternative 1. The way we've recommended the phasing, which I can get into here in a second, there would be some sunk costs because the first phase would be realigning that southbound ramp, turning that into a traffic signal, which is not part of that alternative 3. That said, and I have a few slides on this as well, there are quite a few active transportation improvements we're recommending in this area, and those would be generally consistent between these options. So as an example, the existing bridge is fairly narrow. It just has a shoulder, a single lane of travel in each direction. If we were to widen that to add active transportation facilities, that would be consistent between alternatives. Anything else, Don, that you would like to add there?
No, yeah, that sums it up. Thank you.
Yeah. And so with that preferred alternative of alternative 1, one of the larger issues that is occurring today is really at the southbound ramp as far as capacity constraints go. And so recognizing that and the proximity to the railroad, we felt like that the west side of this interchange made sense as a singular phase that you could build and construct separately from the bridge and the east side. So you'll see this phase 1, that realignment, some better ped bike facilities, but not the whole connection, would cost around $14–15 million. At the time we did these cost estimates, we were doing them back in, I think, late 2021, early 2022, and they were escalated to be, I believe it was a year 2029 of expenditure. But my guess is that these are probably a little bit low given all the cost escalation we've seen in the construction industry since that time. So that would be the first phase. And then the second phase would again be the east side of the interchange, including widening that bridge over US 97 and adding that roundabout for a total of $38 million for this set of improvements. And this also includes, like I mentioned, the active transportation improvements. So I'm going to go into some more detail on those now, unless there are any other questions on this slide. Okay, hearing none. So today there's not any type of continuous facilities out here for people walking or biking. So one of the recommendations coming out of this plan was to try and create a more consistent system of improvements through this area, focused primarily on shared use paths or multi-use path connections. And so you can start to see here some other planned trails that kind of connect into this area. At the time we were planning, it was unclear exactly where that US 97 Bend to Lava Butte multi-use path would go. And really either side of US 97 could work with these interchange improvements, but we'd focus that investment, that shared use path, on the south side of the roadway to connect into that path. And there'd be some opportunities with these ramps to look at grade separation of some of those paths from a future roundabout at this location, for example. And so from a cross section, what that looks like again is that shared use path on the south side, buffered bike lane with a sidewalk on the north side is what's shown in this cross section. But through conversations with our committees, there's definitely some opportunity for refinement of this cross section. Maybe that looks like delineating space between people walking and biking on that multi-use path, or narrowing the median to get a multi-use path on the north side as well. And looking at ways to have some vertical barriers between that path and the travel lane. We also discussed with our committees the opportunity for this to have kind of a visual or physical gateway element on that new bridge as you're entering or exiting the city of Bend and into Deschutes County. So those were all conversations that we had with our committees. So on one end of the spectrum in these IAMPs, there's a set of recommended transportation improvements. On the other end, it's more on, again, that policy side. And so Chapter 5 of the IAMP includes an access management plan. So an access management plan helps protect the investment made in those transportation improvements, protects public safety, and IAMPs are required by ODOT to have this access management plan. And the intent of it is really to provide consistent direction and decision-making criteria to how properties can be accessed in and around this interchange area. So while it provides that decision-making criteria, I'll just note that no actual changes would occur through this project, but it would be through future land use applications and project design phases where some of these criteria might come into play that would look at how to consolidate access points and reduce some of those conflicts right around the interchange area. And so as an example of what that kind of looks like, currently there are access spacing requirements along US 97. So ideally it's 1 mile between adjacent ramp tapers. So Murphy Road interchange is the closest, or that's 2 miles if it's rural. So between along US 97 between the Baker and Murphy interchanges, there should not be another access point to US 97. And again, this is an existing access spacing. Along Baker and Knott Road, ODOT requires a little over 1,300 feet between ramp terminals and the nearest access points. And that does require some coordination with Deschutes County and cooperation to enforce those requirements beyond ODOT's jurisdiction. Within Deschutes County, the intent of those access management restrictions would be to minimize direct access to arterials and provide 500 feet spacing for public roads on arterials. And there are exceptions that could be allowed for safety or other constraints within reason. In addition, another required element of that access management plan is key principles and methodology. So these principles and methodology, again, provide that direction, that decision-making criteria for access changes in the future. And they're very similar to the project goals and objectives. And so these are all mailed out to property owners for review and comment. And the methodology will again be subject to property owner comment with each design phase. So if funding were found for that phase 1, the methodology would then again be mailed out for comment and have more public outreach before any type of changes would be made. So as an example, the IAMP includes several tables that breaks out different areas around the interchange and recommends specific actions. And so these are generally going to be implemented by ODOT, Deschutes County, or others as applicable, usually as part of future land use actions or project phases. And the actions described for each area are somewhat general to allow for appropriate discretion for each decision in the future. So we're not necessarily setting anything in stone with this IAMP for what would have to occur for any particular property. The other element of this would just be other general management strategies to improve transportation safety and efficiency. So considering reducing the posted speed limit along Baker Road and Knott Road after some of these improvements are constructed. We heard again and again about the importance of evacuation routes, and so needing to enhance those and maintain them, particularly during construction. With those active transportation improvements, looking at adding wayfinding signage, and then with any new signals, needing to manage how those are connected and coordinated with the railroad in particular. And then finally, there is a transit route that goes through this area, so needing to maintain the ability for that transit route to safely serve this area. Finally, the plan, Chapter 6, recommends implementation. Like I mentioned at the start of this presentation, the IAMP is already incorporated into the Deschutes County TSP as a legislative amendment to the comprehensive plan. So I grabbed a screenshot of that here that shows, the components of this plan are recommended as a project in the county's TSP. The Bend Metropolitan Transportation Plan also includes a project description that's consistent with the IAMP. And so finally, the ODOT will be adopting this IAMP as a refinement to the Oregon Highway Plan. So those are all of the pre-prepared slides. Are there any questions on this project?
How much of a project is bridge widening, I guess, is one thing that jumped out at me. You know, is there a foundation for that, or is that a new bridge when you talk about that?
We considered a couple different options for that. The structure type of this bridge could allow us to add on to it some type of cantilever structure for peds and bikes in particular, if we're trying to add a shared use path. So that could be one route to pursue, or a complete rebuild of the bridge could be another route to pursue.
I mean, that's the thing that comes to mind is there ways to make, because that could be expensive and, yeah.
But is that, what did you assume in your phase 2 cost analysis? The cantilever, bridge rebuild, or what?
We assumed this would be adding to the existing bridge, not a complete replacement in the cost estimates. Because our engineers, based on the very preliminary information we have on the structure type, believe that that's feasible.
I wanted to ask about the safety concerns associated with the current, the current effort, the current infrastructure that's there. So there was a mention of safety concerns. I'd love to hear some specifics about kind of what, what's happening or what we're worried about specifically at that interchange.
Yeah, I think the existing safety concerns are primarily, from what I recall, the southbound ramp. During the peak times, it gets fairly congested with a long queue that starts to spill back towards US 97. Today, it doesn't get to the main line. Our future projections were showing that that could spill all the way back. And usually when you start to see that level of delay, people are accepting unsafe gaps and trying to pull out onto Baker Knott Road, maybe faster than they should. And so we did see a history of crashes at this location. Let me see if I can grab. Can you all see this figure here? It's probably not very large for you. But we do have a figure showing kind of the existing crashes in this area. And there were 4 different locations that we identified as safety focus areas based on this crash data and some of the history we were seeing here. The speeds are fairly high here. You start to get, I forget if it was maybe 50 when you start to get onto Knott. And so you do have people coming into this interchange at fairly high speeds.
Commissioner Chan, to add to that, I think we've also heard just a lot of general concern from active transportation users crossing the interchange, accessing essential destinations on the other side.
Yeah, and particularly if those, as those future trail connections start to come into this area, wanting to make sure that there's a safe way to access those trails in the future.
Yeah, and of course, it's going to be exacerbated by expansion of the Bend urban growth boundary there on the southeast side, and just more and more trips through the interchange.
Yeah.
And then one of the slides talks about should be no direct access from 97 between Baker and Murphy. And you might have said some words about this, but what does that really mean for a county system that just happens to have those access points? And I'm referring to China Hat, Ponderosa. And at what point is there a trigger? Does something ever get closed is the question.
Thank you for the question, Commissioner Devine. So generally we monitor those for safety performance every couple of years. Our long-term kind of vision within the Parkway plan, and I think within the Deschutes County TSP would have the overcrossing, right for China Hat. As far
as in there, future overpass?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I didn't have a feel for that.
Yeah, and then for the recommendations around Ponderosa or for eventual closure, as with most of the modifications for access, for at-grade access on the US 97 Parkway.
Oh, speaking of closure, what's happening with Lafayette? Is that a Bend issue? You know, our little potholes when you come off 97 and there's like a pothole every 3 feet. I know that's not you guys, but you heard if they're gonna close it?
With Lafayette,
Yeah,
so from the Parkway plan, thank you, Commissioner there.
well,
Our current direction with the Parkway plan is that if a project is funded at Lafayette, Lafayette becomes a right-in and then the right out is closed. So that would extend the deceleration lane, make it a little bit easier to access the buildings through there. And that modification in the future, when funded, would essentially do that. We currently have no plans or anything in our statewide transportation improvement program to fund that improvement right now.
Can I help with some of that?
Yes, absolutely.
oh, great.
Maintenance.
So I actually sign off on all the access management for the district and within there. One of the things we're gonna take a hard look at, especially within the methodology piece of it, is how does it support what the current needs are for the community? But secondly, how does it support the commerce that's in that area as well? Within the realms of safety. And so going back to those things, when we look at a long-term plan of that, you're gonna look into your, first off, what is the future needs? But secondly, how do you support what the current needs are right now? So that's gonna come into play. One thing they talked about too is the spacing standards inside there. That really has to do with driver reactions.
Mm-hmm.
But if we can show in there that, and we can look at it, that we can provide a safe transportation system with that still being set, then we can make some mediations to that as well. And we've done that in other methodologies that I put together, or
But
we put together, sorry.
it'll just be a point in time when that comes up, because
It will.
yeah, we'll talk.
It gets very difficult too,
Yeah.
doesn't it? It's something we have to work through, but I'm pretty confident we can.
So like the right turns off of 97 going southbound, like, you know, here and, you know, down south, there's a couple more, Hawthorne. Those probably will get to survive, but you won't be able to pull out onto 97 then, you're saying?
We're
Because of
specifically
safety?
are talking about,
Well, no, like right here, you're saying that you're not gonna be able to go out and turn right. I mean, I never go that way because it just seems like there's never enough room in between the cars to safely do it.
So
So that is I never wanna do that one.
yeah, I think you just supported what I'm saying, is really, it's gonna be defined by the safety piece of that. And we have to take a look at that, right? And as we all know, as populations and daily traffic continues to go up, it changes what that looks like. So it's a constant evaluation. I'd have to look at specifically what you're talking about, but I mean, that's really what's gonna drive those decisions.
It seems like right here, people are really going fast, coming down the parkway, so it's just safer to go a different way.
Are you talking about the Lafayette here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the map will always tell you to go that way, but it's a lot safer to go a different way. Might take a couple extra minutes, but you're not gonna get rear-ended.
Going back to the Baker interchange, do we have a sense of when the decision on the paved path alignment or route is going to be made?
Yeah, I'll start. So we've gone through the land use process with the county, and right now we've determined with the county planning staff that the land use supports the path. And so the path is currently being designed to go down the eastern side of the highway.
My final question was, a project like this, you know, I'm thinking ahead to the funding. You know, how is a project like this typically funded? You know, historically funded, understanding that the future is very uncertain. But I mean, you know, in the past, you know, would there be federal money? Would there be state money? Would other
Typically in the, well, thank you for the question, Commissioner Chang. Typically in the past, when we've had interchange funded, it's through federal dollars, either through federal grants, earmarks, or earmarks in, you know, from the state legislature. right? And so most of our funding mechanisms, at least in the last decade, have not lent themselves to building infrastructure this large, right? Usually we're focused on our fix-it mechanisms and our safety mechanisms. One of the benefits of the essentially the phasing approach is that we can kind of chunk that out in the future and maybe have some recommendations that we can say, hey, we're going to tackle the southbound off-ramp through this portion. So it doesn't all have to be done at once.
So Jim, how does maintenance look? Isn't that part of what your title was? How does it look out at Sisters then? Were you able to fill those employee positions that I know you advertised for late this time?
In relations to this or
No, just
overall?
for overall, because someday it's gonna snow here.
So no, I haven't filled all of them yet. I guess we'll move on to the next piece of it, yeah.
Okay.
Well, first off, are we done?
I think so, unless there are other questions from.
Oh, I do. I would be remiss if I didn't say, where's Omar today? He's always my person at home. Is it not here today?
Well, typically he's tackling some other things at ODOT, but from the planning side and this being a planning project, we
Okay.
nabbed Jim to talk about our essentially our budget situation.
He had planned on being here today.
You what?
He had planned on
Oh,
coming today.
okay. Well, please tell him I asked about him. So he's
Okay.
great. He always answers my phone call. I so appreciate it.
Yeah, he's a very smart man, and I think he's gonna be part of some of the senior leadership eventually, but
Okay.
I think he's being pulled in some other directions right now.
All right.
Going back to your original question, so have I filled all those positions? The answer is no. And the reason being is we've already started recruiting based off of the September timeframe. I still have about 5 to 6 positions. When we talk about positions, I'm actually talking about maintenance positions. I did fill some very critical ones, and I'm in the process of interviewing for some others this week. I filled one of my incident responders retired, and then our dispatch center that supports 2 regions, basically the whole eastern side of the state for ODOT, had a vacancy, so I prioritized that as well, because now we're helping 5 districts as opposed to just 1. I have a maintenance manager position that opened up since July, and so I'm replacing that. I currently have 4 positions that I'm going to fill, that I'm requesting to fill, let me put it that way. One of the things that we're seeing is we have so many vacancies within ODOT that HR really just to be able to hire people correctly, had to really divvy out the number of positions that could be for each district to fill. And so far I've been able to do 6. So I've hired 3 for the actual maintenance positions. And then it was very critical to hire those other 3 into those other positions to help support their overall operation. Once I hire the other 4, I'm going to actually be above the number of positions or personnel that I actually had last year. Yeah, so I'm pretty confident that our level of service is going to be either equal to or maybe even a little bit above what we had last year. Obviously, events may change and may tell me something different, but at this point, I'm going to continue on with what the direction that I've been given. So that's where we're currently at. Just so you know, the state have asked me to continue to hold 10% of our positions open. And that's indicative of where I've been for the last 4 years. So we're pretty close back to where we were. The caveat to that is the new people that I'm trying to replace, because we did have losses, will not have the expertise, and that'll take some time to bring them up to speed. We're not going to put somebody in a plow and tell them to go do good the next day. We're just not. It's usually about 2 months where they do ride-alongs and follow-ups with our folks to really understand so they're safe when they're actually out on the highway. And we go through kind of a checklist certification process.
The other important piece of this story is asking how you are paying for those people or how you will pay for those people, because, you know, we just saw a small operations and maintenance package passed through the legislature, which is supposed to support maintenance personnel. But it is, you know, looks pretty likely it's gonna go to the ballot, and you know, given people's sentiments about taxes, I wouldn't be surprised if that gets repealed. So you know, my understanding was that prior to the passage of House Bill 3991, ODOT was on a trajectory to lay off hundreds of operations, you know, basic operations and maintenance personnel. As we got set up for that special session, the governor basically directed ODOT to fill, you know, maintain and fill positions. And so the only way that you do that, if you didn't have enough funding to have those positions, the only way that you do that while you're waiting for legislation to pass and you know, go into action is by dipping into reserves of various kinds, or, you know, taking money from other places that ideally we would be preserving some money for a you know, future crises or needs. So can you talk about that a little bit? Where is the money coming from to get your maintenance team to the level that you're going to have it at this winter? And then after that, I want to ask about what happens if House Bill 3991 doesn't, like, it gets repealed.
So there's several different variances in that, Commissioner. So that's a really good question. I mean, the direction I've been given is to recruit. But the budget that was loaded for me is equal to the budget for this biennium anyway, the initial one. It's equal to the budget I had in 19 to 21. And so I'm trying to stay within those realms. And that's one of the reasons why we're still holding positions and we'll continue to hold positions. I've also given up close to $1 million over the last 3 years, 2 years, about 2.5 years in equipment. So our TBR, our time-based rates on equipment has gone down. But there's always inflation that hits on any of that. And it just seems like an inevitable cycle. That's a good question. So there may be a point to where at some point, something has to give, right? It will. And so either there's some additional funding or maybe they find a different, you know, funding source to help that. I don't know where that comes from, especially given our requirements under the Constitution, or in the Constitution. So if we get to that point, then yes, there'll probably have to be some layoffs, would be my guess. I don't know that, and I can't predict that.
For last winter, there was a couple $100 million allocation from the E-board, right? To prop up maintenance. Of course, 2 years ago.
So 2 years ago, there was a $19 million one that came. By the time that and so, yeah, and that helped. Don't get me wrong, and we were very appreciative of that. By the time it got to our district, though, and then, you know, after hitting 14 districts, I received about $545,000. That actually took care of about 3 major storms. That's really what that came down to. So that lasted a little over a year. We did use it to buy some material and some mag chloride in the following year. So yes, it did help. But that doesn't go very far. Average cost for a winter that's normal is around 2.1 to 2.2 million, right? With both equipment, personnel, abrasives, those type of things, mag chloride.
Yeah.
So to go back to kind of finish out what it looks like, if we got to a point to where we actually had to do layoffs, I'm hoping I get a little bit more of an input to this, because one of the things that I got really concerned with the way that the layoffs were designed last time was that it took 2 of my maintenance stations and closed them. I'm gonna try to, because we really don't save a ton of money by closing those, because we still have to put them in caretaker status. So one of the things that I'm gonna suggest, or if we get to that point, is we'll break out some of the cuts across the board more so, and retain some of those open. That doesn't mean that I'm gonna have a ton of staff there to be able to maintain the facility. But I get definitely afraid that if we lose and we close a maintenance station, we'll never see it back. And one of the things that I've said, going clear back to when we were doing a legislative tour like 14, 15 months ago, my focus is to make sure that we take care of the rural areas as well as we take care of the metro areas. And I've said that for over 18 months now. Sometimes that is purely the lifeblood for those folks. It really is. So we'll have to, and so at that point, it's going to be a very difficult balance, but there will be level of service that will go back down. Yeah.
Well, I gotta imagine that truck traffic down 97 is commerce for the whole state also. And that's rural because it
is. And when we look at it, Commissioner, we also look at, your freight routes.
Yeah.
26 is one of our primary freight routes. It brings in, and I work with Nathan Derby on a lot of this stuff. And so that's going to be one of the primary ones we look, because that brings in your food, fuel, probably primary more than anywhere else. 97 is key, but a lot of 97 is continuous route. 20 is the other one that is an emergency route for us that we have to really focus on. That interconnects the rural communities out there as well.
Yep.
Since you mentioned it, between Goodrich on 126 and Cloverdale, there are like massive potholes right there, and honestly, it doesn't make sense. Have you ever driven that section?
I drive highways very frequently.
Yeah, it's really, it has a lot of potholes just right there for that short
126
section.
between Goodrich and where?
And Cloverdale, yes. Anyway, I drove 79,000 miles the last 3 years, so I can tell you where a lot of potholes are. But I was just wondering, I don't know which one of you would be, maybe this isn't a relevant question, but I had to slam on the brakes so many times the last couple of weeks for the deer migrating. Did we have more deer kills than normal? I just felt like everyone was crossing the road in front of me.
No, the interesting thing is recently, it's funny you say that.
I saw a lot of dead animals by the road.
That's not uncommon there, but actually inside the city limits of Bend, we've had quite a few deer strikes.
Usually there's 100 a year. I did research a couple years ago. They kill 100 within the city of Bend. It's like the county picks up so many, it came out to be like 1,100 a year of wildlife that are killed by vehicles. And then of course, they're the ones that go into the trees and die, and we don't see them.
You said, and I apologize, you said Goodrich and Cloverdale?
Right, Goodrich, I think it's George Cyrus on one side, Goodrich on the other, but it's going towards Sisters, and there's just like, it doesn't make any sense why there's so many, it's a really bad stretch of road.
So that piece of road is actually one of the ones that I've been trying to really forefront for a STIP project to get that completely, I would go out and I drive every inch of our road every year, and I go out and I do what's called PCI, or pavement condition indexes on every one. So
does Chris Doty.
He does, yeah. And a lot of times him and I will interconnect with a lot of stuff. But that particular road, we're gonna have to put some money into it in order to retain it. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, that's one of those where if we don't do something, it'll cost us a lot more.
It's gonna cost way more, and it just seems like it's been that way for a while now, and
we've actually done, and I'd have to look at that specific point, but we've actually done some thin paves on about 70% of that from High Bridge or the Big Valley that goes down from there out to Cloverdale, and then we need to finish that piece up going east.
Okay.
Excuse me, west.
It's going westbound, yeah. Great, so nice to get to meet you in person today.
Yeah.
I want to just go back to the House Bill 3991.
Sure.
I want people to, my key interest here is helping people understand what that does or doesn't do for us in terms of maintenance and maintenance levels. So prior to that special session, there was a plan set out for substantial reductions in force. Can you share with us, under that plan, what would your team look like this winter?
So a couple of things to remember here is, actually, first off, is when the positions got frozen and it didn't pass the first time and we were looking at layoffs, the positions that we had vacant were also frozen.
Yeah.
And so with that, I had also 18 positions. I have 63 people I can put in for plows, right? Of that, close to 25 would have been lost. So you're talking almost 40% of my staff. 2 of the maintenance stations would have had to be closed. One of them, with the Sisters one, there would have been a possibility that we could do a fairly good coverage because the Bend crew is fairly sustainable. The one out of Mitchell really concerned me the most that I had, because most of the surrounding maintenance stations around there were going down to caretaker status. So there was literally about 2 people to 3 people to take care of probably 5 highways and about 250 miles of road. Wasn't gonna happen. And once again, it's impacting those folks. But it would have been, Commissioner Chang, it would have been close to 40% of my staff. So the level of service, one thing I want everybody to impress upon too, everybody focuses on winter maintenance, right? But without that, your incident response, your debris in the highways that cause crashes, those type of things, the crashes themselves are actually a much greater impact to the traveling public than winter maintenance is over the course of the year, by far. As a matter of fact, I should have made multiple copies. Would you share that with us? This is the statewide, and maybe you've seen that, but those are the impacts going, and that's a statewide look, but it's far greater than the winter maintenance is. The other thing too is, one of the things that doesn't get talked about is I have a electrical crew that works for me that takes care of 158 signals throughout the whole region for almost every metropolitan area that's inside Region 4. Unfortunately, those folks eventually at some point will have to be pulled back. And so that would put the burdens back onto the cities and counties as well.
How many signals?
158.
So yeah, I saw that crew at the trade fair, youth trade fair at the fairgrounds. I was talking to them.
The rock
They're
stars.
Eastern Oregon, okay, they're all over the place.
They're rock stars. And I have a lot of pride in that crew. Does that help?
It
You
does.
want me to get, if there's someone else who'd like to get in more granular?
to like bring it home for people. What I'd love to ask about, a couple of very local roads. And, I care about Mitchell, but for the people of Deschutes County, to go to, we are on the cusp of winter right now. For the people of Deschutes County, what kind of reduction in frequency of snow and ice removal would we have been looking at on Highway 97, Cascade Lakes Highway 20?
Yeah, so Cascade Lakes Highway, so right now Cascade Lakes Highway is the secondary, it's a recreational highway. So it's what we call level C. 97 between Sun River and Redmond, we tried to keep it at an A. Right now it's back to a B, and the only reason why we put it there is because of the expertise of our folks so far. The intent would be to bring it back to an A. You can probably look at, we're not gonna allow closures, but the delays are gonna be impactful, and it's gonna impact your commerce. And it'll impact truck traffic is probably one of the biggest things. But the big thing that we have in the metro area, and I consider Sun River to say Redmond in that category, will be your big commutes. Once that commute gets disrupted, then you're gonna impact hundreds, if not thousands of people. and then it costs a lot of money. So we would still keep primary focus there. Cascade Lakes Highway, I just met with the CEO of Mount Bachelor 2 weeks ago and told him, and he knows this. We have a great working relationship with those folks, but the impact would be, we will get to you when we're done with this. And he understands that. And so we've taken the steps of actually putting up additional variable message signs that can be able to, give people a decision at a decision point where if they needed to turn around, they could. Highway 20, look, that's once again a big freight route. I don't see a ton of change out there. But 26 would be where I would get really nervous, because we bring in, like I said, a lot of our fuel, food, medicines, those type of things, our primary sustenance for your communities, not just Bend centric, but across the region, come across that road. And so we would have to push a lot of our efforts to that. Takes away northern 97, right? So you see where the dilemmas start. And so some of it's going to be like storm driven. When we get to where it's district wide, then there'll have to be some pullback no matter what. I mean, it's a level of service that will go down.
Okay, so what you are anticipating right now is, Highway 97 level A, Cascade Lakes Highway level C. Sorry, what were some of the Highway 20 from level A, and Highway 26 is going to be a priority as well?
Yeah, so 20 will go down. 20 is at a C right now. I kind of anticipate 97 being more to be here this year than it'll be in A. Just until once again, it's going to be dependent on how quickly we can get our people trained up and what kind of winter we have out there. I'd like to retain a B on 26. That would be my intent. Will I be able to do that? I don't know. If we got into that scenario, the answer to that is not no, but no.
And that's with the budget you're getting, which
Correct.
It's unclear how we're paying for it.
Correct.
Okay. I mean, what I was told at an OTC meeting was, gonna take a pass at this, or gonna try for this small transportation package in the special session. If not, these are the cuts that we had to make, that we would have to make. But if we're holding off on those cuts in hopes that we're gonna get we're going to get a package out of this special session, we can retain or kind of try to maintain at a certain level, but we're basically drawing on reserve money that will impact us all the harder later in the biennium if we use it now and if there's no transportation package to back it up.
That's absolutely correct. The one hope that you kind of look at is we have so many vacancies right now. I mean, there's hundreds of vacancies in ODOT that have not been backfilled. So if we got to that point to where we're back to that, some of that may be, some of the layoffs may in the maintenance arena anyway, may be eased by some of those that'll be frozen. Because it comes out to a total number, right? But I don't know what that, I mean, who knows what that looks like, right? You're predicting the future. And so the bottom line is yes, if we get to that point, if we have to do layoffs again, if we get to that, it'll be very difficult. The other thing is it's going to be very difficult just from a staff standpoint. We keep moving these guys and bringing them around full circle. And people that work for the state and probably for the county too, a lot of them come here because of the stability. We've taken that away from them. And so I've lost some folks because of that.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised that you're having as good success as you're having with the hiring,
We're trying.
given the uncertainty around that.
I was surprised as well. Some of the recruitments that we had 20 and 30 candidates. Yeah, we're very fortunate.
So a little time check, I mean, we're just going here, but I want to thank you very much for the interchange update, and then I don't really feel a lot of pressure on time, but we let this go a lot longer than we had planned. No, anything else?
Yeah, I could talk about this stuff,
I know, that's why, I mean,
but
it's good to have everybody
but,
here.
you know, just, you know, the point I'm trying to get to is, we desperately need new operations and maintenance funding for our state highway system. You know, we need it for many counties around the state, where we're not in as bad shape as some counties, but, and if we don't get that, if House Bill 3991 doesn't stick, I think basically what it means is a whole lot of people are going to have fatal or serious injury crashes that didn't have to.
One thing I would add is right now I have zero money to go out and fix our high volume highways. And that was, a lot of that money was taken to put into to sustain personnel. If something doesn't, you know, if there isn't something that's brought to the table, it goes back to what Commissioner Dare, you were talking about, the cost to retain those or sustain those or to bring them back will be 2 to 3 fold.
Yeah, of course.
Jump way up, alright, well, we know. That's
You're
the
well
philosophy
trained
of our
by Chris
county road
Duddy.
department.
Chris has trained us well on pavement preservation.
As it's good.
Okay, anything else? See you then, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Laura, miss you.
Well,
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much.
Of course. If you have any questions, you're more.
I'll know where to find you. Well, thanks for coming.
So our next item is just a discussion amongst ourselves about possible appointment for the Deschutes County Budget Committee. As I say, thanking everybody for coordinating us to get through the budget committee process, doing some interviews. Got my notes here and a couple of thoughts, but this is for us to put some direction to. Perhaps we put in a couple names to staff just to see if there's comments. Or if you want to start talking about me. You ready for that?
Sure, I've got my files.
Okay.
I would say that I was really pleased that we had a strong pool of applicants for the budget committee. Lots of people. I'd be excited to have work with us on setting the FY27 budget for the county. You know, rising to the top of the list, though, I wanted to put forward my support for Angelique Lascar, whose you know, experience in budgeting and fiscal management in very large organizations spanning from, you know, the corporate sector, you know, the corporate private sector to, you know, large public institutions. Also, it would be of great value also with the county college background, really understanding kind of the nooks and crannies of Deschutes County government. I think recommended her very well. Great, thank you.
Yes. I had 2 people that I was interested in, David Cosper from Terrebonne, who has a degree in public administration and engineering. And then Asa Watts, who's worked for a lot of international companies, and she actually went to Central Washington University, where I went to in Edmonds, she went to in Ellensburg, so I thought it was fun to see that. Something in common.
Well, and yeah, so the names you mentioned is where I was at too, for some kind of a couple names.
Okay.
And
I I also, well, I like both of them. I like David Cosper, you know, with his, you know, he had a good mix also of public sector experience and private sector experience. I also appreciate his master's in public finance and just his creative thinking about new revenue sources. He was less familiar with the full breadth of county functions than some other candidates, you know. That's, you know, S.O. Watts. I mean, you know, she's fresh out of county college. I really appreciate that. Appreciate her finance and accounting background. She has only lived in Deschutes County for 2 years. I mean, that was my only you know, that was my, you know, my major mark against her, but you know, that'll change over time. That she'll have, you know, more time here in the community, you know, putting down roots, building relationships, things like that. But I guess among those two, I would lean more towards David Cosper.
So, can I make a motion then that we accept David
Sure.
Cosper as and offer him the appointment to our budget committee, because I know we're gonna be meeting in January, and we'll need him. So that's my motion.
Second, that's been moved and seconded, Mr. Cosper. So, yeah, I especially want to thank all the folks that got engaged in that, just like Commissioner Chang started off with. I mean, everybody that came to the table, excited to be there. County college graduates, engaged citizens, wanting to help out, sense of community service. So it was just wonderful talking to everybody through that process. Mr. Cosper with his career in the public sector, I think he'll be real strategic, thinking the big picture about what can we do, how can we think down the road a little bit about how to keep it down the middle of the road, kind of very specifically. I want to thank you for stepping up. So any other comments?
I'll say it is related to Bosa, that fabulous restaurant on Galveston, in case you guys didn't know that in your interview. So I could share that. Somebody knows favorite restaurant.
That's a good thing to have in your family.
Yeah, I know. Nice.
So call for the vote. Commissioner Adair.
Yes.
Commissioner Chang.
Yes.
The chair votes yes. There we go.
Great, thank you. We'll reach out to him so we can watch the board meeting on Wednesday, and we provide the budget updates, direction on where we start with the budget approach for fiscal year 27.
Okay. It's right up on the agenda here. So item number 4, work session for consideration for improvement agreement.
Good afternoon, commissioners. Nice to see all of you. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving.
Yes.
I know I'm still digesting all the food.
Yeah, that's a project in itself.
Yep, and the leftovers, exactly. For the record, Hallie King, Senior Planner with Community Development. And this item before you is to prepare you for this to become or be a consent item on this Wednesday's agenda. And this is an improvement agreement request by the Caldera Springs Destination Resort related to the road and utility improvements for phase E1 of their the expansion area for the destination resort. Specifically, the phase E1 includes 40 single unit residential lots and 9 overnight lodging unit lots. And so this packet we have for you includes a cost estimate for the road and utility construction, which was reviewed by the county road department. And then the developer also submits their bond document as well, that will be retained by the county until the improvements are complete. And so this, again, this is going to be on the consent agenda for Wednesday. And so this will allow the board signature, will allow the developer to proceed with final plat approval.
Could you situate this improvement agreement in kind of the history, you know, kind of plans and higher level agreements, kind of tearing down to this point?
Yes, exactly. So great question, Commissioner King. So this, so the Caldera Springs received, final master plan approval, and these are now part of the individual subdivision approvals as they're phasing out the development itself. So again, the conceptual master plan and final master plan have been approved with a general lot layout. And then now the developer is coming in to do the individual tentative subdivision plats, which is the actual where they're building the roads out, building utilities in, and creating the lots to then receive building permits for dwellings. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
No
Any other
questions. I mean,
questions?
that's
Okay.
pretty clear
Yeah.
what we're doing here and.
Yeah, this is the
taking
standard.
The next step, yep.
Yeah, standard, nothing, they've done a few of these already, and so yeah, nothing unique or special about this one, but just wanted to set the table for Wednesday.
It's really nice to know that some people are going ahead with their projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, great.
Well, it's probably a little smaller step than maybe they thought in the past, but that's fine. It's moving forward.
Yeah, and they're getting close to their final build out. Ultimately, they're gonna be constructing 340 single family dwellings and 150 overnight lodging units. Currently, right now with this plat, they'll have 241 single family dwellings and 110 overnight lodging units. So they're getting, I think, close to the end. There might be one or two more phases for the subdivision out here.
Sorry, could you say that again? The full build out,
Sorry.
340 dwellings.
340 single family dwellings and 150 overnight lodging units.
And this phase will get them to 241 and 100.
Correct.
We'll see this on the consent agenda on Wednesday.
Yes, excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you. Item number 5, role, purpose, and oversight of Deschutes County Office of Internal Audit. So, another one of those items we talked about a few weeks ago. We said, well, let's just schedule it up and dive into this a little bit.
Caught up on the agenda, did good.
Well, a little bit, yeah, half hour. So, yeah, I mean, this is kind of us. I don't know if you want.
Oh, sure. The commissioners and Elizabeth Pape, our internal auditor, and Daryl Parrish, our audit committee chair, are here. If you'd like them to join us.
Yeah, come on, join us.
Just over a month ago, on October 29th, County Clerk Steve Dennison addressed the board under citizen input, and he provided his response to a 2025 elections audit. Later in the meeting, under other items, commissioners discussed the internal audit program, and majority of commissioners requested that we schedule a work session to discuss the audit code, which is chapter 2.14, which is attached. I'm certainly available. Our county attorney, Dave Doyle, may come down. Our deputy county administrators are here, but this is really an opportunity for the board to discuss the program as you see fit. We're happy to participate as you wish, as well as Elizabeth and Daryl.
I got thoughts real quick. I mean, just a little bit. So I know Commissioner Dare, you're like, well, we want this thing, independence. Yes, we do. I support this program. We want to be the best version of ourselves we can be. It's like this is a transition from a longtime auditor to our new one. Welcome, Elizabeth. And now we're just like stumbling a little bit. And so as I say, the intention of what we're doing, why we're doing it, the output of what we're doing, the openness of the departments, I support all that. And so it's interesting that we're here. There's a little bit of tension in some different places. We got a response or input from one of the audit committee members today. I don't know if you've seen that email. And that's like, way out of bounds, I'd say, for where we're at here even. Because it's like we're picking fights with each other, but we want to do good things. I mean, the intention of the audit is to take a look at best practices and look for improvement opportunities. And we're getting feedback from the recent clerk's election, like, well, is that what we signed up for? And is this what we want to be doing? And then, our auditor says, I'm following best practices. I'm doing an audit. So let's work through this as a team here.
Yeah, I'd like to make a plea for us to look at doing things a little differently. the two instances of friction or tension that I'm most concerned about are, number one, the body cam data issue with the sheriff's office, and number two, these questions about IT security plans with the clerk's office. And they're actually, as I describe them, like I think we'll see that you could describe them as parallel situations. In each of these instances, there are very important questions to be asked, and I am glad that the auditor's office is asking them. I think there are different ways of answering them than the ways that we've discussed so far. I'll start with the sheriff's office body cam situation. Again, it's very important to ask questions about, are we collecting the right data? Is it being handled and stored, processed, and used appropriately? All important questions to ask. We hear from the sheriff that, in his opinion, the auditor is not the legally appropriate entity to review the body cam data. So I guess I would just ask, in an instance like that, if you have important questions to ask, it's appropriate to kind of frame them in the context of an audit. But then there's, an elected official saying, there are laws that restrict me from sharing this data with you. Are there others we can enlist to provide that independent review function? So, like one simple idea would be, get some other law enforcement officers from outside the Deschutes County Sheriff's Office to perform that function for us. Heck, you can even set it up as an exchange. I'm guessing that other sheriff's offices are concerned about whether their body cam data is being appropriately collected, processed and handled and stored and used as well. So they could do it for us, we could do it for them. The auditor could help frame the questions or the analysis that they need to do. And then it's one law enforcement officer, reviewing the work of another law enforcement officer. I think we could do the same thing with the clerk. The clerk's situation is very similar. We have, it is extremely important to ensure everyone that our election systems are secure, right? But then we have the county clerk saying that, within the legal framework that he operates in, he doesn't think he should be sharing that data with, or that plan and that information with the auditor. Could probably share it with another clerk. And same kind of thing. We could, if other clerks are having questions asked about the integrity of the election system and the integrity of information technology systems associated with elections, we have some clerks look at ours, we offer to look at theirs. Again, the auditor could help frame the investigation that needs to be done and accept the word of other, it's essentially like a peer review process as opposed to an auditor review process. So I just wanted to offer that up as there are these questions that are these topics that they're super politically charged, very, very politically volatile issues. I mean, you talk about body cam data in the realm of law enforcement. That is a really politically volatile topic. Both the political sensitivity of these topics plus kind of essentially competing legal frameworks around, who gets to see what for what purposes, I think, invites us to think about different ways of answering very appropriate questions. I want to offer that up as a thought.
Oh, I have a lot. Yes, the audit committee, Daryl, you were there that day. They actually felt that the audit regarding the clerk was a good audit. And the fact that we have a peer review, Elizabeth does for her work every 3 years. If there are problems with what her work's doing, it's definitely gonna be picked up in the peer review. There are national standards for what you do. And actually, I feel we're really fortunate to have you. As I said earlier, we have someone in the sheriff's office that ended up in prison over embezzlement. And, maybe you're doing things that are a little bit, but I feel that's important. And not all the division heads are gonna be happy sometimes. Sometimes I think it's really great to have someone else come in and look and see and give improvement ideas. And I just feel like, listening to the comments in our meeting that day, I thought things were really good. So I'm not that upset about it.
I don't think the audit report with regards to the clerk questioned the integrity of the election process. It was just the potential security of the software, the audit software.
We actually just didn't comment on it. We said we didn't get to see it, so we can't comment on it.
Right.
Yeah,
That's all
but
you
the
just-
way that it was phrased is it casts
Thank you.
suspicion essentially on the clerk's office for not sharing the data. I mean, you have this big red banner across the page. It is, it sends a message. It sends a message that there's something that should be looked at here that you didn't get to look at, and that's, I don't think, an appropriate message for us to be sending. I'm happy to talk about it.
And so Elizabeth and I have sat down a few times, we've kind of gone back and forth on this, and I'm absolutely on both sides of this. The county code says auditor has access to CJIS information, Community Justice Information System, CJIS. And there's a CJIS system, access should be allowed, but it does get into some very touchy issues. And I'll talk about it a little bit. So the clerk's, election system, it could have been packaged up, the intention is to go audit this. It was determined by the clerk, just write a paragraph or two, and you're very good, judicious about how you write these things up. So this is for that. Access wasn't provided, and clerk's responsible. So there's ways to say it and not make it sound like, oh, who's hiding what? Why don't they want to answer it? So that's like a little catch-22 in there, and it just gets down to that, because right now in this world, people that, I think I can make the assumption that something funny's going on here, and I'm not gonna let it go, and I'm gonna tell people on Facebook, which isn't our world, but that's the world we live in right now. It's just wild. So.
But no one in the audit committee said that about your report. In fact, the woman, Ben Parks and Rec, said she felt we really did an excellent job.
Well,
goes,
as I
and
say,
so-
I think she got really way out of bounds already now, which she's telling us what to do and how to do it. So we, I don't appreciate that.
Well, I didn't get the email.
Yeah, well,
I think we
yeah.
we didn't all get the email?
It doesn't show up on my phone.
Yeah, here. She sent it to the media and everything. I mean, she's trying to push all buttons. She CC'd all the media in town.
Okay, well,
Yeah, CC, I mean, a member of your audit committee wrote us a pretty strident email and CC basically every media outlet in town.
And accusing us of not wanting to do process improvements or, that's pretty heavy. But that's the work of the day, now to get through this.
So I'd like to go back to the two issues, which is access to data, and I actually don't think they're really parallel. I think there are some pretty distinct distinctions between the two. And so I'll talk about the body camera audit first, because I think that one's pretty straightforward. And that report was released today to the audit committee and to you and to department staff, and it'll be released to our public list next week. In that instance, worked with the sheriff for a long time, going back and forth, like how do we get access to this?
Did you have to work with 3 sheriffs or 2 sheriffs?
Two.
Yeah, okay.
Two, it was two because I said I was.
Because that was the other dynamic, I know.
Yeah.
It was 2. And what they came back and said was that that the body camera footage can only be accessed for a law enforcement purpose. And that would mean doing a specific investigation or use in a specific trial, or, you know, if someone, on the other hand, had a civil complaint about a specific incident. So their response was not, you can't see it because you're not law enforcement. Their response was, we can't look at this kind of thing. This is not a law enforcement purpose. State law does not allow us to make sure that, and at a large scale, to do this kind of review of body camera footage. So that's just to say that I appreciate where you're coming from, like maybe they could do it for each other, but the same state law that prevents me from seeing it for that reason would prevent them from seeing it. The reason I couldn't see it wasn't that I wasn't law enforcement, it was the kind of review I wanted to do.
I'm pretty sure that the sheriff's office offered up, like, I can get someone in our sheriff's office to review this for you. So if you could do that, I'm pretty sure that they could allow another sheriff's office to review.
I do note that, and that does seem to be an inconsistency in their logic in how they've explained this to me, that they are doing these kinds of reviews. So they're allowing themselves to do these kinds of reviews, but they're saying it's against the law for me to do it. I didn't push that issue because I want them to be doing those reviews. But you're right, that is inconsistent, and I think that's a question to ask them.
Well, I think from their perspective, if they're doing reviews of that, of the, you know, collection, storage, use of body cam data on a regular basis, it is for law enforcement purposes. And asking another law enforcement agency to also look at it, I think.
I don't see why the law doesn't say people who are law enforcement can see it. It says it has to be used for law enforcement purposes. They told me this wasn't law enforcement purposes. They never said you can't see it because you're not law enforcement. Because our office has seen CJIS information. Our office has reviewed that kind of stuff. Other auditors across the state have reviewed those kind of things. So there's inconsistency in that logic. That's true.
I understand you're trying to assert your authority. I want to ask the question, if outside law enforcement agencies were reviewing that data, could they accomplish the purpose that this audit was intended to accomplish?
It would not be me saying it, and it wouldn't be from our audit committee. It would be another review, and of course, they're welcome to do those reviews. They do those reviews quarterly, and they can share them. I'm encouraging them to share their reviews publicly and tell us about them. So yeah, yes, they could do it. I would still say that for my purposes, I can't draw a conclusion on that.
Well, that this might be a boundary of something that it's appropriate to let other people review instead of the auditor.
And that's all the report says, is I couldn't draw. It says the audit committee asked me to look at this, and I can't look at it.
And I think the report had just got it today, so
So as I say, I mean, I almost want to just stay at a high level. I mean, we're a highly functioning professional organization, professionals in leadership, elected officials, other department heads, and we want to do, you know, process improvement and excellence or whatever. So we're getting stuck here. Somehow we need to jump over that a little bit because, yeah, I mean, I support, you know, wanting to have a, you know, professional audit program at this point. Somehow though, it's not an elected position, right? It's a choice of the Board of Commissioners in code before all of our times that even got us here. We have the audit committee that is the sounding board, the guidance, the independence. So we want to celebrate all that. But if we're making audit choices, I mean, audit plans by choice, you know, you guys are doing it.
The group.
I'm not
makes
looking for the
choice.
gotchas, I guess, is, you know, the headline, the headline that looks like, hey, we need to read this, we need to buy today's paper because something interesting's in here. And I'm not accusing, I'm just saying that it just feels like some of this is what we're dealing with.
And I guess I would reemphasize, I think that these are important and legitimate questions to ask. But to me, it doesn't have to be our auditor that answers them. Every single one of these questions that you know, and particularly the two that I brought up, it's if we can come up with a process where we can provide a rigorous independent review that meets the need, addresses the information goal, then and having that done by the auditor is really going to going to cause major challenges or concerns for some of our departments, then I think it's not a horrible thing to have someone else do it.
So when do you make the determination that you're gonna need to do that? Before the report started, during the report? Or are we just talking about these two particular instances?
I mean, it seems like at the point where there's a scope of an audit established and you have a department head that is pushing back strongly, it's a reasonable time to ask the question.
I think there's a couple of things. One is these weren't audits that I chose. These were on the audit plan that I was given when I came.
Right,
They came
that's
from-
really important to bring that up.
From the audit committee. There's no way I feel like I could do I mean, I was given the topic, body and auto cams, go audit it. That's what they wanted, and I really feel like I can't fulfill that assignment without looking at the footage or commenting that I wasn't able to look at the footage. And you're right, maybe someone else could look at it, but they asked me to do it. And so that's how I put it in a box and tied the bow and said, here it is.
And I think we would certainly be open to getting other answers to the questions in other ways, providing you got the answers. That's.
I mean, I would need to see the evidence in order to draw an audit conclusion on it. But if the audit committee or if you all wanted another review from someone else to do a review, I think you're more than welcome to get that.
And then, as I say, going high level again, and I was on the audit committee for years too. And I mean, if there's something interesting, we need to shed light on it. We need to let the world know or start to mitigate whatever we need to do, right? So that we're getting stuck on the things that we're not able to evaluate fully or whatever, you know, is the step here and debating it. And it's a real shame that we're here. And as I say, I don't want you to be going in with your hands tied, but we've got to figure out how to, you know, the culture of the organization is, okay, we're doing audits. And I remember, you know, David Gibbons, previous auditor, you know, having that opportunity to say, I'm working with these groups now, doing this, publishing the audit. I don't think he was, you know, compromised, and I don't want you to be compromised either. But it's a choice for us to do an audit, have an audit program. You know, the conundrum I see is that scenario from the San Diego audit that you provided, you know, the camera audit. How do you not end up with a headline that says, 97% of the time they did the right thing, but they screwed up a few times. And then the conclusion is, hey, if that was me and somebody got shot and I was involved with the public safety thing and it's only 97%, this isn't good. So, I mean, it's like we're shedding light on this thing that's not deterministic, or, I don't know how to get through some of those things. And when I say deterministic, we can't guarantee 100% in some of these scenarios, but the headline's always gonna read 100% not achieved. I
mean, that was in my headline.
Oh, I know, no, I'm just saying, but that's what it looks like if somebody's going into an audit, that's my point. I'm not judging the end of that, how do you step into an audit that looks like it's gonna say.
I try hard to be fair, and I try hard to have a balanced conclusion, and maybe that one wasn't balanced. And the reason I was sharing that with you and the sheriffs was not to say, this is what I'm gonna do. In fact, I'm very careful to never say.
I'm referring to somebody else's audit, I'm not saying you,
But just to say, like, this is the kind of review that I will do. I will look at these kinds of things. Here's another example of someone who had access to the information. Let me see, where was I? I
Again,
think
these are incredibly politically charged and complicated issues. Well, yeah.
And I think it was
politically complicated issues.
I think management has every right, and I've always included management's response, and I always take feedback from them too. I mean, this audit that the sheriff's office is, we worked together, and there were things that they said, oh, I think you should say we did this, and I said, okay, I will add that. They said, we don't think this fits in, and I said, okay, I'll take that out. I do work with staff to try to avoid those things when I can. And I think in most cases, we get to a place where we have a very balanced presentation. I think I need access to information in order to do an audit, and our code gives me access. And there are ways, so if the concern is for the elections audit, if I find some security flaw and I report on it, then someone could exploit that. Well, I can write a confidential report, and I shared with Steve an example of a confidential technology report, not the actual report, the high level, like this is the review we did of technology, and we can't share the results, but and work with legal to say, like, is this information protected, and should we redact it? And I can do that. I can also get law enforcement certification. I can take the training. I can do background checks. I have in my policies and procedures how I need to protect criminal justice information, so that no one can, I keep my office locked all the time. Not everyone here does that. And one of the reasons is because I do have access to information. So that's important. And it's also important because you don't want even a perception that management is cherry picking and saying, okay, we'll give you access in this time, but this time, no. And the reason you don't is because then there's doubt, like, oh, are they only giving us access when they know when they think that's a good program? And then they're saying no, because they think there might be problems.
That does seem to be a potential role or function for the audit committee to sort out which times are we getting into things that are extremely sensitive, extremely politically complex, third rail issues, in which times a department just is trying to keep the attention somewhere else instead of on something that's unflattering. That is, if you're going to have an audit committee that governs the function of the internal auditor's office, it sure seems like that would be an appropriate role for the audit.
Yeah, I think the only thing I might caution about that is we're having that discussion in a public meeting, and we have a discussion about we don't want to look at something because it may be a potential political issue. That might not sound good, and in a public meeting.
Well, we're doing it right now.
I know.
We're talking about things that were
Right,
extremely politically
Right,
complicated.
but I'm saying
that-
we're not gonna review something because it may be politically charged. We should not review something.
Oh, maybe we should
because-
bring in Dave and yell at Dave then, because he's, he was in
that's
charge
just-
when
Ah,
this all came up. Who knew where we'd be
Well,
today?
Again, if, I appreciate that these were put on the docket. And at the point where, the scope of the audit was laid out, if you understand that there's gonna be grave concerns from a department head, it does seem like that's an appropriate moment to, take a step back and reflect with the benefit of, the whole audit committee.
I would imagine the audit committee knew these were political and risky areas when they put them on the audit schedule. I think that's one of the reasons they were there. These are things people are really concerned about and want to know more and want to know about whether they can trust these things. I mean, on the election audit, we talk about headlines. The headline was election integrity maintained. I mean, and I think that's sort of what Patty is going to, that was a positive audit.
Right.
We went through, these are things, I talked to community members who were like, I know they're sending ballots, 50 to a single house and there's rampant fraud and they're changing the votes and they're not checking the signatures. And I went through and I said, no, I looked at that stuff. Those things are good.
I mean, I have to say that if people had serious accusations they wanted to level against our county clerk's office and the security of the elections, that is a criminal investigation. And people are more than welcome, if they think they've got the goods, if they think they have a real issue, to take it to court, to take it to law enforcement, to take it to the district attorney.
I think our job is to look at the program and the program's controls, and it's not at the level. I mean, a criminal investigation takes many more resources.
But you were responding to people who were essentially making claims of criminal activity.
And I was not telling them I'm doing a criminal investigation. I was saying I'm gonna go through and look at the internal controls and look at the process and see if it's breaking down.
But
And no one said like, oh, this is happening here, this person is doing that. No one alleged like a specific criminal incident to me.
Theory stuff.
No.
Yeah, and I think
But
there is
I
value.
think that there's a whole lot of conspiracy theory behind the concerns about election integrity right now.
And-
Again, going back to the complete political complexity of some of these issues, and asking the question of whether it's appropriate for the internal audit office to be investigating those issues.
We didn't investigate, we did an audit, we looked at the program, we looked at the internal controls, we reviewed the documents, drew conclusions. I think we provided assurance. I mean, that's what auditors do. They review things and they provide assurance that what they said is what happened. We have our external auditors here looking at our financial statements now, and they're going to put a rubber stamp on our financial statements and say, yep, they look good. And they're looking for criminal things too. But the way they do it, the lens they do it through, is to look at internal controls and reporting and testing. Not
And
to-
password sharing and all this other.
They're
fabulous
looking
things.
for financial criminal activities. I mean, they're not looking for, like an investigation into body cam data. That could suggest that you think a law enforcement agency is abusing people's civil rights and trying to hide it. Okay, that is a very, very serious concern.
Or the cameras could be broken, or the software could malfunction, or people might not be trained right, or people might just forget. And so, this is the kind of thing that I'm looking for. I'm going through and seeing like, are people making mistakes? Is there ways we can change our processes to add more assurance? I'm not doing a criminal investigation.
To check if body cams are working, could you actually go look at the hardware itself instead of looking at body cam data? I mean,
I wouldn't have it, I wouldn't have anything to see. I would need to see the results of.
you could actually set it up and like take some recording and then check it, like, oh, that's actually working. I mean, there are basic questions.
That wouldn't have shown if people were forgetting to turn it on. That wouldn't have shown if they had training to know what instances to turn it on. And those are the questions as well.
Which get at some of those potential bigger political questions.
All the work we do here is important. The work the clerk does, the work that the sheriff's office does, the work that the finance department does. Everyone's work is really important, and my job is.
It's much clearer what's a problem and what's not a problem for some departments than for others. Like, you're not handling the cash right that's coming into the RV park. Okay, you know, that is a clear problem, and it is also a problem of a scale that, you know, people are very comfortable with the auditor investigating.
Looking at the IT controls in the clerk's office, I do that all the time. I did that with a body camera audit too. I looked at their IT controls and commented on it. Almost every audit I do looks at IT controls. So that's a very basic, looking at user controls and the IT system is a very basic, normal auditor function.
I want to ask questions about the Pacific Switch data that came out. That they shared information that they were not supposed to share in response to an audit. Is that accurate?
No, they shared information that I didn't ask for.
Then yes, they
made a mistake and shared information with me they should not have shared.
They mistakenly shared information in response to an audit. So if an auditor is asking for information and the person giving the information makes mistakes, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that the auditor is making a mistake that compromises important information. But if the person who's giving the information, you know, for an audit makes a mistake, the net effect is still the same. That sensitive and important information has been inappropriately shared.
For that audit, I had to be trained in how to handle that kind of data. I had to share how I was going to store it, to say what I was going to do with it.
I'm not questioning your ability to handle the data, but I am saying that an audit can result in operator error on the end of the data provider that leads to sensitive and important information going to the wrong places.
I would say that is a risk, but I don't think the answer is that we shouldn't have audits. I think the answer is that we should have better controls over our data, and that's the recommendation.
What I'm saying is that if somebody says, you know, I've got really sensitive and important data and I am not comfortable sharing it with you, it's not necessarily just about you.
I did protect the data, and I could easily protect the data the clerk wasn't sharing. I wasn't even going to have the body camera data. I was going to go over there and view it and just write on my checklist like, yes, this happened, no, it didn't. I take access to data very seriously, but it's something I need to do my job. And I don't think that risk means we shouldn't have audits. It means we need to make sure that our auditor is aware of how to handle data, has the proper background checks, is storing it properly, and those things are true.
in the case of these two audit components that I keep coming back to. I'm not saying, I'm not saying you're not asking valid questions. I'm not saying that these are things that shouldn't be reviewed. I am saying that it's possible that the internal audit office is not the appropriate entity to do the review. And this is something I would want to be able to, I would want commissioners to be able to discuss with the whole committee. It's something I would want department heads to be able to discuss with the whole committee. And that is kind of the root of the code, the code changes that we're discussing is, defining, a big piece of that is defining the role of the audit committee in the governance of this department within the county.
I would say that I take protecting data and my role overall very seriously. That I do understand the great privilege that I have in accessing data. That's a huge responsibility and I take it very seriously. But it's also something I need to do my job. You're right, it is up to this commission if they want an auditor who has access to that. The audit committee said, we want to know more about body camera data and elections. I feel very comfortable in both of those things. The user controls on the election system is something I audit all the time in every program I look at. Body camera data, there was a whole lot of models out there that I could use. I shared one from San Francisco about how auditors look at these things. These are very common, almost bread and butter audits. So I felt comfortable. One of the things I actually do have to, when I get an audit assignment, I actually have to do a review and think like, am I qualified to do this? And it's actually, I have a document that says, yes, I'm qualified to do it. So I can assure you that I didn't take this responsibility lightly. Now, but it is up to the audit committee.
But I want to circle back to that HR audit, the civic source data. It's not about you. There was a mistake made and sensitive information was shared that wasn't supposed to be shared. Okay, so when you're dealing with sensitive information and you're dealing with it in a like supercharged, politically volatile issue, these department heads have legitimate reason to be worried. They have legitimate reasons to be concerned.
I wish that the tone could be, the auditor takes this very seriously. She's put all of these protections in place. And we can trust her. We can trust this staff to do this work. And I just have to go back. The audit didn't put that data at risk. The lack of controls at Pacific Source put that data at risk. My request didn't put that data at risk. They had poor controls, and that was discovered through the audit.
The data wasn't at risk in the end because it was to a certified auditor that said, hey, wait a minute, this was too much data.
That's true. And it was destroyed and protected.
So I was able to talk to Chair Harrington out of Washington County, the Washington County Auditor. That's an elected position over there. This is last week I was able to do that. And Chair Harrington from the commission, she said that, oh yeah, everything's great. We're just rocking and rolling. And there's no audit committee too, which was interesting to think about that scenario. So it's an elected auditor, kind of the partner of the front office, which is what we're talking about right here. Going and doing audits at their full independence and authority of the elected auditor position. So as I say, that was just the one structural change I said I learned about. There's no audit committee. And as I say, Catherine Harrington was very comfortable with, oh yeah, we're partners on this thing. And I get to talk to the auditor too. I talked to her for about a half hour. So just another reference point. other counties that do this. There's only, what, 6 or 7 counties that have audit programs. So we're one of them. We do it by choice. So, I mean, there's a possible action item here was a proposed set of code changes. So I'm just thinking, how do we close up today and maybe either go have another meeting or whatever we need to do? You know, a proposed set of code changes that kind of just use more words to explain it, maybe, you know, define the expectation a little bit more. I'm not here to put you on the spot, but any feedback on that? As I say, I'm not looking for confrontation, and you know, I'm living both sides of this.
I mean, I think you have a really good code already. And I would question the intent of the changes. So if the intent.
But hold on, I mean, the intent, that was a button you just pushed right there by saying those words.
If the intent is to allow management to say, this is what should be audited and this isn't, that's problematic.
But the intent.
If the intent is really, you know, this, we need to take a pause here, this is something everyone, let's have a bigger discussion about it, I think they can work. But
maybe that may be the crux of what we're talking about here, because the intent is looking for fraud, waste and abuse, illegal activity, and then performances. How can we take some program and reduce the overhead by 10%, right? That's the intent. So, but for you, as I say now, I'm talking to you, I apologize, but if the intent is to limit it's not to limit. I mean, that's not even to go there. That's the weird part.
Well,
so,
I mean, well, if management is able to say, you should audit this, but not that, there's always a chance.
Yeah.
And whether it's intentional or not,
So
it raises doubt that we want you to audit things we think are good, and we don't want you to audit things that we know are bad.
So this, I mean, I don't know how far we want to go here today, because it's all a balance of resources, right? If we have more people and we have more time, we can fix more people's problems, and I mean, get real political.
No,
but yeah.
I wanna play on that as well.
So I mean, there's a disconnect in the terminology here, that maybe that's one of the things we're.
I want us to look at the audit function and look at these audits in the perspective of the whole county. We have real and severe budgetary and human resource constraints. Sometimes there's stuff, I mean, like there are a couple of times in the you know, I went back and I watched the last 2 audit committees. There was a couple of times where we were dealing with issues, things had been brought up, and you know, for example, you know, ADA. ADA with elections. First off, the clerk said, you know, I don't think you read the law correctly, and I think we're in compliance. Okay, so that's a concern in and of itself. But then after that, it is a matter of budgetary and staffing constraints. I mean, could we do more? Yes. If we're doing what is required by law, and we could do more, but it would cost us a whole lot. And we already have a clerk's office that, you know, all, like so many of the departments within this county are performing above industry standards, essentially. The amount of election staff that we have per registered voters, higher than most other counties. You know, the amount of work that, you know, people in the assessor's office does, you know, per properties, higher than most other counties.
Restaurant inspections.
Yeah, restaurant, environmental health inspectors, higher caseloads than other counties. So there's also just a certain amount, like, look at how much time you've spent in audit committee meetings arguing about this stuff in the last 5-6 months. How much time you were drawing from your county commissioners arguing about this stuff. This is, I mean, we have to put this in perspective, right? The audit function is important, it is valuable.
And it cannot distract us from our other work, and it cannot make demands upon departments that draw more budget and staff resources away from delivery of program than is appropriate.
I really do take issue with that because I feel like I've just been trying to educate on what is in code and is the orders that I've been given. You're absolutely right. It's up to you, it's up to management to decide where resources should go. I don't decide that. When I make a recommendation, it's just about providing information. This is something that someone else does. They do it better than you. Maybe you don't have the resources to do that. And then management has a chance to respond and say, we can't do that.
But putting a black mark on someone's record in your audit or a red mark on someone's record is essentially doing that. Is saying like, you are not allocating enough resources to X, Y, or Z thing. Not all your audit recommendations, but some of them.
The management always has the option to accept the risk that's identified.
And when they do, they usually articulate why, and it's acceptable from our perspective.
Like there was this HR thing. I don't have all that, you know. I don't really want to spend all my time as a commissioner understanding every single audit in great detail. But this HR thing where you said, this is not in compliance. They said, well, we will fix it this way, which wasn't the way that you said that it needed to be fixed, but we will fix it this way. But then they still have a red mark, in their audit. There is no category of like, oh, okay, you got to the goal in a different way. It's you didn't meet the standard.
I disagree. I think they didn't address the risk that we had identified. They were doing something else, but it wasn't addressing the issue I had identified. And Nick and Whitney and I had this conversation.
I mean, and this does loop back to budgetary and staffing constraints.
Yes, and
they could have done what you
and they chose not to.
Because they did not have the budget and staff to do so.
That's right. And
so
another instance,
that should be recognized. That should not be a red mark on it.
I think that was recognized. That was in the response, but they didn't have. They wanted to do it.
That was in their response, but it wasn't in your audit.
No, it was in the follow-up.
In the follow-up, yeah.
And there was another one that they had on language access, and initially they had said, oh, we accept the risk. It was about countywide procedures. And then in their response, they actually said, we don't want to do a countywide procedure. We need to do one for each department because they're so different. And I said, oh, you're right. That addresses the risk. So that one moved to in process. Because you're absolutely right. Like sometimes there is another way to get at it, and we have conversations about those. And in that instance, though, with I think it was asking for the SOC report. I don't remember the SOC report on Pacific Source, which actually is something most third-party administrators are happy to provide. Pacific Source is a little different because the third-party administration is not their first line of business, so they don't do it, but other providers do that as a course of doing business. Yeah, they said that's not something we're going to do. I would hope that as they're going out to bid for, once that contract is up, that's something they'll consider putting in their request, because I think it is pretty common for people to ask them how those controls work.
So, Board of Commissioners, 3 elected officials, we have an audit program by choice, we have an audit committee. I feel like we're kind of pushing and pulling here still. How do we get past this where we can say, because I want to be able to say at the front of the county, say, yes, we support the audit committee, work with the audit, the audit the auditor herself and the audit committee are empowered to go do the best damn audits in town. But I think we're half a step away
So
from
when
that
you
for
guys
some
want to
reason.
get on
which-
the audit committee then, and I'll step off of it. Because I see what they do, I see the work they do, I see the issues that they raise. And it's just like a couple of years ago when the guy at the transfer station didn't charge me, or no, he didn't give me a receipt. And I thought, oh my gosh, how much money can you pocket in a day? So I immediately called, I think it was Tim at the time. And then I just heard the story somewhere else that someone was not properly charged. And I thought that issue had been taken care of at our landfills. You know, if you do not get a receipt, please
Yeah,
call this
the
phone
sign on
number.
it, yep.
Yeah, so anyway, I'll step off the audit committee if one of you guys wanna get on it, so that you can see the diligence and the work that is performed and is done. And we are so fortunate considering the size of money that flows through here, the 1,200 employees that we have, and the honesty and integrity of Elizabeth came highly recommended, and I feel like she has busted in order to perform her job per her standards that she's expected to have.
No one is,
No, I'm
no one
offering
is
you the
questioning
job.
how hard
No,
how
I'm
hard
offering you the job if you
staff
want
or
the
the
job.
committee is working. No one is questioning the quality of work being done.
Okay, then if one of you wanna
and-
get on the committee so you can see it firsthand, that would be fine with me.
What is really important about your offer is that we have not defined the role of the audit committee clearly and effectively to govern this function. So that is what we are talking about with these code revisions. So if we, I'll make you a deal, I'd be happy to take the
Now we're
audit
getting
committee
somewhere.
off your hands after we finish these code revisions.
Is there like a draft of code revisions? I haven't seen anything.
They were attached to the agenda. Yeah, in the.
So you're supportive of the code revisions?
I am supportive of those code revisions. I think we need to define a clearer role for the audit committee, and I would hope that would help with some of the issues that we're.
Well, and I sat down with all the audit committee members, scheduled up, sat down, typed to everybody, and I did not sell, and then, that email says I was selling the code package. I'm like, hey, no, I just wanted to get a fresh start, a grounding, let's all make sure we're on the same page and doing something. So as I say, there's not anybody in the room here now, but those are out there, and it is a proposal that can be followed up on. So I'm not ready to proceed with anything like that today, but I mean, that's why we're talking through this. Maybe that's a step to go, and by you saying it's defining the audit committee role maybe, because as I say, I'm on both sides of this. I want a happy, healthy, empowered auditor to be able to do audit stuff. And I want our management to be comfortable with, the audit program we have. And we may not be far off, it may just be this bump in the road that we're dealing with. It's human interaction.
So Daryl, how long have you been the chair of the audit committee? Did you come from West Covina? Is that-
Covina.
Just
Like
Covina.
3 years.
Okay, all right.
3 years.
Yeah, well, Daryl, you
I've been on-
definitely
I've
need
been
to
on
take
one of
a look at them and see what, your
Okay,
feedback.
I haven't seen the proposed changes, but I mean, I kind of have an
I
idea
would
what some of them might
I
be,
would-
but-
I would go with you there, have Daryl take a look, and then we could have a meeting after that.
Well, and then just another kind of random thought, I mean, I do support the fact that audit by choice can be a resource for best practices, like some issue, some topic that, how do we do this better by choice, from management, my point. So, you say you don't wanna be, steps back, yeah, exactly. But I mean, there's times where, walk into the office and say, hey, I got this spreadsheet and I got this, I don't have any more money. Where do we go with this? Which is a business problem at that point. It's not a independent audit plan follow-up, it's a business problem. I support the fact that, there may be an ask like that somewhere.
And we do have room for that as well, but that is I think we call it a consulting engagement, it's not as an audit, and the audit committee can choose to, if management has a request, we want some
Well,
help
see,
with this,
so then if management has a request, it's more of a, audit committee, we may have 10% less resources for a while here because of this. I mean, I don't know that the audit committee would be, I don't know that I support the audit committee having a veto authority on that. See what I'm saying?
Their
And as I say, this
concern is how much time I
Yeah,
have to do
which is
the
time.
work that
Yeah.
they've asked me.
Yeah,
I
we
know,
have a
yeah.
work
Our
plan.
time is limited.
Go
Yeah.
through it
And-
every year and make changes to it.
I want to stress, I take my direction from the code very seriously, and I take my direction from the audit committee very seriously. So it's not like I'm, I need to be out, shooting off my guns or something. Like I really, this guides me. They guide me.
Yeah.
And so when they say, do an audit of elections and do an audit of body cameras, I'm doing that because they've asked me to, and I take that mandate seriously.
Let's blame it on somebody that was on the committee like 3 years ago before you got here or something. We can always do that.
Okay, well, is there anything else for this? Is to say, I'm not looking for a conflict here. We need to be businesslike, this is gonna be good. We do this by choice. So, anything else for today? Any thoughts? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Daryl, for coming in.
Have the, hard copy of the.
Okay. Any other items? No announcements. Is there other items?
I'll put it.
We'll have a meeting Wednesday,
That's probably okay.
and then we're starting to, kind of look at the last few meetings of the year here, so that'll come around.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. So seeing nothing else, meeting adjourned.
Daryl. Thanks, guys.
You're welcome. Thank you.